Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Well, I'm here at Cape Cornwall. All you can see, I imagine, is sea, but there's some rocks there to my left, which are called the Brisons, and which are said to resemble General Charles de Gaulle lying in his bath. What do you reckon? Not sure I can see it myself. I think it's a big nose sticking up on the left-hand bit. But anyway, it's an absolutely spectacular spot. Very windy though, hence the handheld microphone, which hopefully will mean we'll get some better audio. We'll see. Now, need to just sort of continue the introduction to pensions, really. Talk about the different types. And all I'm going to do here is throw out some types of pensions, and what I'll do over the next few videos is add some detail to that, to each one of them, so that we know what types are out there, what are suitable for you, which ones maybe you have already, and then we'll go from there. We'll put some more flesh on the bones in due course. So these are just the different kinds of pensions which are around, and they can be separated into two main types: personal and company pensions. Starting with the personal, first of all, you've got stakeholder pensions. Now, these are kind of like the Tesco value of the pensions world. Stakeholder pensions were introduced in 2001 by the previous government in a failed bid, it turns out, to get the masses saving for their own retirement. And the way they thought they would do that would be to make pensions cheap and cheerful so that everybody could have them. But that didn't work, because no matter how cheap you make something, that doesn't mean that people want to buy it, particularly if it's a pension. Traditionally not the most fascinating of products. I think perhaps the government could have taken a leaf out of Steve Jobs and Apple's book, who usually charge about twice as much as the going rate for something, simply because they're cool and desirable. Perhaps somebody needs to come up with a way of making pensions cool and desirable. The stakeholder pensions are cheap. They have a cap placed on the charges which the insurance companies, who usually run these things, there's a cap placed on the charges that they can make. And because they're cheap, they're cheerful, not a lot of bells and whistles, usually a restricted choice of investments within the pension, and that's stakeholder. Now, their big brothers are just personal pensions, we call them, and they don't have that charge cap. So they do the same thing. Remember, these are just wrappers, buckets into which you place money. And a personal pension generally doesn't have those restrictions. There'll be a lot more choice of funds, but usually still run by insurance companies. Now, the granddaddy of personal pensions are called SIPPs. That's S-I-P-P, self-invested personal pensions. Now, they are more complex animals, but still essentially the same thing, just a wrapper that you put money in. But your investment choice on those is pretty much unlimited. Again, I'll come to that in more detail in due course. So moving then from personal to company schemes. When I say company schemes, these are pension plans organised by the companies that you work for. And they fall into two main camps. The first are called defined benefit schemes, or more commonly, final salary schemes. Now, final salary pensions, defined benefit pensions, are different to all the others. You pay your money in as normal, and because this is a company scheme, the employer will pay money in as well. But what you get at the end, when you retire, is not dependent at all on how much money you save up in that plan. Instead, it's defined at outset. And the reason they're called final salary schemes is usually the pension you get in retirement is based on a calculation of your final salary. That can be calculated in different ways. The length of time you've worked for that company. So it really doesn't matter how much you put in. There's no risk to you. You know what you're going to get, hence the name defined benefit. The risk is all on the company. And they have been shown in recent years to be a pretty risky bet. And so final salary schemes are increasingly being closed, certainly to new members, and in some cases being wound up altogether. So the alternative to, just ignore me. The alternative to defined benefit schemes are defined contribution schemes, or sometimes called money purchase. Now, these are pretty much similar to a personal pension in that you are building up a pot, but your employer contributes to it as well. And the risk now is back on you, because what you get in retirement is dependent on what you put in and on how well it does over the period. there is sort of the equivalent of a SIP in the personal world is something called a SAS, an SSAS, a small self-administered scheme. And it's a similar sort of thing really, but usually has more than one member and can invest in pretty much anything. I'll come back to those obviously in due course. Now there is a kind of a middle ground. It's not really, it's on the personal side, but some people confuse company pensions with something called group personal pensions. Now these are essentially, as the name suggests, a bunch of personal pensions. So you have your pot and your colleagues have theirs, but they're grouped together and they're administered by the company. So you get your money taken off you every month in your pay slip, and they pay it to the pension company and they organise it. When you leave that company, you can take your pot with you. You can detach it, if you like, from the group and take it with you, and it becomes just an ordinary personal pension. So those are group schemes. Some people think they've got a company pension and they haven't, they've got a group personal pension. So those are your main types. There are others, but those will do for now. So in the next few videos, I'm going to add some flesh to the bones. But just before I do that, next time I'm going to talk about tax relief, which sounds dreadfully dull, but it's the main reason pensions are a good idea. It's free money from the government. Find out more next time, and thanks for watching. Goodbye from Cape Cornwall.